After years of denying or just flat out ignoring any claims about Hunter Biden's sketchy foreign business dealings, many liberal news outlets have changed their tune. And now CNN's Brian Stelter is the latest. Back in 2020, he brushed off those accusations against the president's son as fake.
The U.S. authorities are seeing if those emails we just talked about are connected to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
False. And here is Stelter yesterday, finally admitting what we all know, that the Hunter Biden story is a legitimate one, and it may be a big problem for the president.
What about Hunter? Hunter under federal investigation. Charges could be coming at any time. This is not just a right-wing media story. This is a real problem for the Bidens. Could he decide not to run for re-election given his son?
I mean, Todd, it's like he has multiple personalities. I mean, that was a different Brian Stelter in 2020 than in 2022. And also in 2020, he called it a classic example of the right-wing media machine. And now he says it is absolutely not that.
As a Seinfeld fan, this is Bizarro Stelter. You had Bizarro Jerry. This is Bizarro Stelter. And it wasn't the fact that they got the story wrong. It was how sanctimonious they were that Fox and the New York Post were drumming up some right-wing conspiracy about Hunter Biden, saying they don't do journalism, we do real journalism. And to make matters worse, because we do real journalism, we can't just report what other people report. We need to research it. Well, you know what? Wasn't that hard to research. A lot of people were able to verify the story and then report it. CNN just coming to the table yesterday. It's August of 2022.
But he credits how wonderful his newsroom is for not reporting the story, Harris. Listen to what he says about quick newsrooms.
And so in September or October of 2020, when the New York Post has something, other outlets can't match it. There's this pressure. Why aren't you confirming this? Why aren't you focusing on this? Why aren't you leading on this? Because we haven't matched it. We haven't confirmed it.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, just to have that last line in there, I think there's this tension between fast and slow journalism, perhaps, between people who know how newsrooms work and the vast majority who don't. So it's just our fault. We don't know how newsrooms work.
Well, I know there's a lot of tension between he and his employer when it comes to people watching his show. So I'm definitely seeing two different Brian Stelters. Yeah. One of them would like to be employed. Yes. So I would credit that probably with most of the flipping of the switch. You can't continue to say that the big bear isn't in the room when it's eating everything that you brought for lunch. It's there. It's real. It's a legitimate story. And we've seen enough retractions and clarifications and everything else in a wider media scope that I guess he can't deny that any longer. I will say this, though, with the Hunter Biden story. The first thing that Brian Stelter said there is all that really matters. There's an investigation going on at a very high level. Let's cover it. Let's not just make it about who we talk to on set and all of that. Let's make sure that if they really want to jump in the pool, that they jump in with all their journalism and not just the parts that they think will help them rate.
Exactly. And Michelle, the irony here is that CNN was the first major outlet to report on the dossier.
Well, right.
It was BuzzFeed published the content, and they say, oh, well, we didn't publish the content, but they focused on it, and it turned out to be bunk.
They get to pick and choose what they just sort of repeat and don't go into on themselves. They didn't on the Hunter, they did on the dossier. But the other issue about it is they were very quick to post this Politico published list of the 50 intelligence officials who said, this looks very much like Russian disinformation. And let's not forget that not only did they not dig into it, the story was suppressed by Twitter and by many others. They shut the story down. They didn't allow anyone to get into it. And as you said, Harris, the real meat and potatoes of this story is not that Hunter Biden was naked, that he smoked crack cocaine. It's the potential for the president to be, what's the word I'm looking for? To
bribed?
Be by the Chinese and others who are paying Hunter Biden loads of money to be on their boards. It's this foreign influence that we could be feeling. And by the way, Biden seems to be really easy on China. Yeah, I just wonder why.
And that affects all of us.
Really,
all of us.
Our own national
in
security.
Serious ways.
That's right. And remember, it was the political director at CNN who was caught by Project Veritas saying, obviously, we're not going to run with the New York Post story right now on Hunter Biden. That was back in 2020. So that appears to be the source of the problem is the newsroom.
And that's fair. But did the newsroom actually try to dig into it and try to move the ball forward? And of course, this could have had a huge impact impact on the election as well. And you sit back and say to yourself, this president and his son's business dealings overseas, when we have problems with China, with Russia, we've got issues in Ukraine, is he making decisions based on those financial ties? That's a huge issue for the American people. I would have liked to know a little bit more about it, you know, at that time.
Especially because we have President Biden on voicemail back before he was president, talking to his son about his business dealings when he said he never did that, but he did.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.